our war. And this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio!
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
Several years ago, I was developing a very severe situation. I called it my flippy heart. It just was doing not good things. And I did not want to go to a medical doctor because I just knew they would give me a cover-up pill. I didn't want to get onto that sort of thing at all. When I learned it was garlic and cayenne is a healer. It is a wonderful herb. I said, I think I'm onto something here. I'll tell you, I wouldn't be without it. It did wonderful things for me.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome to Sacred Matrix, a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Together, we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sacred Matrix. My name is Janet Kira Lessin, and I'm your host, and my co-host is Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin. Our producer is Thomas Becker, also known as the Mad Painter. Boy, I get a lot of interference. Let me see if I can... there we go. That might improve it. Okay. Producer Thomas Becker. Our guest today is Robert Van Den Broek, and we're trying to get him, so bear with us. Hold on. Just hit the wrong button. I want to tell you a little bit about Robert. Here we go. I get all these pop-ups coming on my screen. It's driving me crazy. Stop it! Stop popping up. I can't read what's on my screen. Why does that happen? Maybe somebody will tell me this. Okay. So Robert Van Den Broek is a psychic, and he grew up in Holland, and at a very young age he found he had psychic abilities and saw things which his parents were unable to comprehend. Because of this lack of understanding, boy, I'm getting some feedback here. Let's see if I can, there's something coming in here on my computer, I think. Not sure why we're getting feedback. Are you getting feedback on your end, Amad? Or is that just on my end? Anyway. Okay, so let me go read this. Okay. At a very young age, he found he had psychic abilities and saw things which his parents were unable to comprehend. Because of this lack of understanding about what he could see and feel, his growing up was difficult, and he developed traumas, phobias, and insecurities, plus anxiety syndromes. It was not until he was 13 years old that his gifts and talents were recognized, and under the excellent professional guidance of psychologist Hendricks, he was able to develop consciously in paranormal and spiritual areas. And it was in February of 1996 that Robert first found that he was able to predict exactly where crop circles would appear. And once with his naked eye, and later also in the company of others, he saw a crop circle as it was actually forming. These experiences brought him unique understanding and inspirations, but sometimes the events were so extreme that to avoid misunderstandings, his parents kept it all to themselves. So during this time, Robert's perceptions and senses were becoming more acute and heightened, and he thought he was able to give information and statements to others about things he could not normally have known about. He also began seeing energetic phenomena such as glowing spheres and streaks of lights in the crop circles. So Dr. Sasha, there's a lot more before I get Dr. Sasha on the Aquarian Radio show page on aquarianradio.com. You can see pictures of Robert and some of the crop circles and a long bio and a short bio and a lot more information on Robert Van Broek. Okay, Dr. Lessin, Sasha, are you there?
Yes, one of the really interesting things as somebody relates their personal history, a way to really get what they get or get a lot more is to identify them. So as Robert tells his story, just imagine it's your story or there's a part of you that can resonate with a similar story and just travel along and let him share his experience and see if you can do it empathetically like it's yours.
Okay, and I'm not sure if Matt was able to get Robert. Is Robert with us? Robert, are you there? Yes, no?
No, it said unavailable.
Unavailable. Okay. Here we go again. Alrighty, well, let me try his Facebook. I had him live earlier on Facebook. Let's see if he's on there. He is over in Europe, so maybe he fell asleep. But let's see. Here, I see his thing. So, Sasha, would you like to talk about whatever you want to talk about? You and Ahmad can talk about. I see if I can get him. And welcome, Ahmad. I hope you're having a good day. Okay, so and then I do have a backup speaker if we want to get him, but let's give Robert a chance. Okay, I don't see anything from Robert. Okay, what would you like to do? Should I call my backup presenter? Sasha, are you there?
I'm here. Are you addressing that to me?
Yes.
I've got a really hot person to interview. I could interview myself.
Of course, why not, Sasha? Give him a mic.
Self, are you available? Oh, sure, I'm available. What would you like me to do, honey? I could tap dance too.
No, you're not a good tap dancer. Well, let's I will go on and get my iPad and text to a couple people and see who might want to come on. I was getting some standby people. Matt, do you have any standby people that want to come on? Anyway, I have a couple. I just have to text them.
No, I hadn't been. I've been so busy with what's going on here at the station this last week. I've been going crazy.
I know. I think we're all crazy. All right. While you're doing your tap dance, honey, I'm going to text a couple of the people I have on standby and see who's ready to come on live. We'll see what the universe intends for tonight's show because these are the best laid plans of mice and men. Go ahead, talk.
Just a minute. Wait just a minute, Janet. I got something.
Okay, we're waiting.
I'm trying to pull it up here. Because I knew we were doing this stuff on. Sing a little bit, Janet. While I go to the site where I've got the stuff on
I've lost
crop
my
circles.
Singing voice.
What I mean is,
I don't want to.
Just Janet.
Okay.
Wait just a second. I'm almost there.
Okay.
I'm opening computer.
Okay.
We're
all
past.
Waiting.
Now I got to do passwords.
Buddy, this This is getting to be a regular thing now. It's just a sign of the times. We have guests. It's really weird because I talk to the guests and it's like, I'm coming on, okay. I don't know where the disconnect
I didn't like my password now.
Oh, no.
Oh, wait. So I have to look it up in this book here.
Something's in retrograde, I bet.
Yeah, the whole universe is in retrograde.
Oh, it's a different password. No wonder.
Okay, I went to my first runner-up. It's like Miss America. Where's the first runner-up? I'm going to see if they'll answer. I told this person, be on standby just in case.
Call Tracy.
Oh, God, we should have set that up. Yeah, Tracy's now available. Well, is there any UFO news? Let's go see. I'll do a tap dance with UFO news. Let's see what's new in the news. See, we're so unimaginative. We don't know what to say.
Oh, nonsense. I know what to say. I just wanted to get it right, Janet.
Get it right. All right. Okay. Well, there's now of course, the Navy has declared that UFOs are real, and you were never supposed to see them, military officials say. So you know that they recently released these 3 allegedly declassified videos showing U.S. Navy pilots trailing some unidentified flying objects in the mysterious craft, or flying at hypersonic speeds, flying tens of thousands of feet above the earth with no distinct wings, engines, or visible signs of propulsion whatsoever. And were they flying saucers? Well, no, they weren't saucer-shaped. Incredibly high-tech drones. The pilots had no idea. So that's an interesting, concept. So we have a new level of disclosure.
My computer came up now. Okay. So the first part is I had a discussion. I have some outlines here about how crop circles are formed. And so Barbara Lamb, like one of our colleagues, did this study. She found that it was 800 degrees of hot plasma penetrates the earth underneath a crop meadow. So you start with hot plasma. It's somehow there. That's the first step. The second step, the plasma strikes next to the water or on fields that have water under them. First, the hot plasma penetrates the earth. Then it strikes right next to water and fields that have water under them. The heat hits the water. It turns the water into steam. The steam gushes up, and that's what makes plants viable. It twists the plants into meaningful patterns. So the heat hits the water, turns it to steam, it gushes up, and then plants can just bend and twist, and it makes patterns. Okay, now, if there's some bugs in the middle, they get vaporized. There's porcupines, and there's porcupines that get caught in the middle of these crop circles, and they fry. But believe it or not, I have clients that said they lie inside of crop circles even when they're forming, and they didn't get fried. But I'd say err on the side of caution and don't lie in the middle of a crop circle.
Crop circle when it's forming. But what if you're already lying down and then the crop circle forms, and maybe you're taking a nap in a field and all of a sudden you're zapped?
I guess you get to find out what happens next. And then what the Anunnaki have told us, I can tell you from my research, is that they made ice pictures in space. And what the crop circles that they've been sending, there's a lot of them, but the ones that I'm particularly interested in are ones that say Enki is here now, and this is the age of Enki. That's built right into these crop circles that we'll be looking at. And that's what this particular crop circle says. It says this is the age of Enki. Now the military is also generating crop circles with their HARP technology just to screw people up and mess with their heads. But the reality is the times are changing. And here's a quote from Penray. Crop circles originate where specific minerals and iron is available in the ground and water. Information is transmitted through waves that we call Reiki, blue light, and Vril energy. These waves are sent through space. Water presses the hulm and the crop into the desired pattern. The waves inform the iron ferrous water, and this changes the temperature at specific points within a short time. Signs in the crop. Oh, there's also crops, and they show us to prepare for the godparents' return. So that's another interpretation of the same thing. But if we really look at something amazing, now this may be a little bit technical for some people, but there's also a formula of a certain kind of frequency, a certain kind of hertz that they keep saying that you should notice, because it's a mathematical formula, and it's a way of connecting all the singularities in the universe. And what the seminal thing is called the Poirino 211 crop circle. The Poirino 211 crop circle. And the outer rim says the words Enki Ia in ASCII code. Those of us who have been using computers for a long time know there's this code called ASCII. It's international code. It spells out in our computer language Enki, Ia. These are the names of the Sumerian god Enki. He's Lord of the earth. He's the god of water. He's the creator of mankind. The new ASCII 2 code was drawn in crops at Porino, June 20th in 2011. It's
2011, you mean?
2011.
2011, yeah.
He's a tall, blonde, extraterrestrial god recognized in Sumeria. Tall, blonde E.T. And the exact, there's also a precise number of stars in the crop circle formation, and that what they say is E, believe it or not, equals MC squared. It says that in the crop circle, E equals MC squared. And that's amazing. And this has been repeated other places, the exact same thing. Let's see what. That's who it's about. And now our guest is going to tell us his take on crop circles. Are you there, Robert? I guess he ain't.
Oh no, he hasn't joined us.
Okay, well, Well, tell you what, Janet, how would you like to be interviewed?
Did you know you can buy bread made out of the wheat that was in a crop circle?
Oh my gosh! Oh no, I never heard that. What is it? Does it do anything?
I don't know. I'd love to try it just to see.
Me too. I know. Like at the health food store, the
I'm
stuff
back.
is called, like the Bible bread and stuff costs more and tastes better.
Hi, I had to do something. Okay, so you're still on the crop circles.
No.
Square was the last thing I heard.
No, that's
you went
it.
past that. Okay, sorry.
It's your turn, baby. I can. Janet, in your world, Janet, in Janet's world. No. Yes, your world. What I want to hear is, Janet. Actually, she channels Nimma, the sort of the essence of the loving mother of humanity, and Nimma has some very, very specific recommendations and pledges and things that she's bequeathing to us in our future if we just reach out to them and listen to Nimma.
Let me pull up what I'm writing. So this is all
while she's pulling up what she's writing, let me tell you a little bit about this. She's pulling up things now. And so Nimma is the mother of humanity in several ways. She's the geneticist who and she's also our womb mother, and she's also vowed to protect us and never again to let us just die because of her jealous brothers and nephews and all the royals. She's not going to let them pull their stuff on them. She's going to make sure that
people wonder why the Anunnaki are so important. And the main reason, there's been all these other species visiting us, but these are the latest, the latest hybridization. These are the ones that walk around the Earth. Now, little grays, hybrids, you might have an occasional one here and there, but humanity, we all have Anunnaki DNA. So we owe our existence to the Anunnaki. Now, they weren't able to figure out how to create this hybrid species because it kept bombing. There were too many problems. Like it couldn't hold its urine. It couldn't swallow. They had all these trial and errors, generations of experiments, and they just weren't working. So then finally, through a series of experiments, it took a while, Nima figured out that she had to take the admixture, and they played with this. This is for probably thousands of years. They played with, combining DNA, putting the admixture, which is like the genetic mixture, into one of the Homo erectus. That didn't work. And so they weren't getting the results they wanted. And you can see some of their experiments with the minotaurs and centaurs. They were playing with animals too, mixing just like our scientists are doing now. Have you ever seen the cats that glow bright green? That type of thing, phosphorescent cats. So we're doing it now. But that's what they were doing. What year was that? About 300,000? They were playing with all this stuff.
Yes, it was about 300,000 years ago.
So finally at one point, Nima said, well, I got it. You have to take the formula, the admixture, the DNA mix, and put it in a vessel of clay, because it wasn't going to work unless it had the genetics of the Earth in it. So we have some Earth DNA in us. We have a lot of DNA, a lot of variety of DNA. And then the final...
You're not making it clear. The male gametes...
Well, make it clear for me, honey.
The male gametes were from Enki and his son Ningishita. So that every admixture, every zygote was primarily of the Nibiru Anunnaki genome. So and so that's what it's not just some admixture. It's like half to begin with Anunnaki, and then when Nima puts this stuff in her own womb, the mitochondrial DNA, that's pure Anunnaki, also goes into these children. So in a sense, Adam and Eve, as you'll see, are 3/4 Anunnaki and 1/4 Homo erectus.
Right. So they were grabbing the eggs from. Were they grabbing little eggs or just DNA strands? Because you can have. No,
they were not. They were getting entire. Eggs, and they actually Ningishita and Enki had intercourse with Homo erectus females, but it didn't take, and it wasn't that good anyway.
Right, so they were trying all kinds of ways to make this happen. So finally, you're so bad, honey. You're so bad. So finally it worked. I'm going to pull us out of this. This is not that funny. You're hilarious. But finally, I forgot what I was going to say. Finally, So she said, this. Admixture is what they call it. The DNA and all that, the sperm and eggs and all the extra DNA that's injected, or however they did it, had to go in an Anunnaki female if it was going to have results that they wanted to have, which was an intelligent being that would follow orders, which is what humans are. And so, and of course, Enki, who was in a political marriage with Damkina, who was madly in love with Nima, threw his wife under the bus. He says, "Oh, just put it in Damkina. She can carry it." And Nima, who had some sense of morality and ethics, said, "No. This could be a very dangerous thing, and it's my experiment. We're going to put this child inside me." And it took, and it worked.
Oh, we should go back. We should go back a step because Nima factored out the mineral composition that it would take to make a viable being on this planet. And she, they coded it so that they were teaching our descendants in the Society of the Snake what happened. But it's obvious to anyone that really looks at what happened. She analyzed what was it that made Homo erectus germ resistant and able to adapt in several ways to this planet. And she factored out that and she they say they put it in a vessel of the clays of Africa, and she added copper. What that means is she did a mineral analysis, and she was way too refined as scientist to just say, oh, well, maybe the clay of Africa. She knew exactly what she was doing. And so she was a great genius in this way of understanding how different minerals would feed into our bodies so we could survive here.
Right. So, but also you can see that we weren't really designed for here because, the temperature's not right. Our bodies fall apart. It's not like this is the optimal place to have a human being. So I guess the Anunnaki weren't really designed for. So we could probably, if somebody would really wrap their heads around this, and I'm certainly not it, but if somebody wrapped their heads around, they could see what planet would be best for Homo sapiens, because we have so much Anunnaki DNA. This isn't the base. We can survive here, but we don't really thrive here like we should on a planet that's more suited to this form. We're in this form. So we have a lot of woes and aches. But apparently the Anunnaki themselves, maybe that was intentional. They had technologies or they had science that they didn't suffer from all these diseases like we do. Do you have any insight on that, honey? Why do we have all these diseases that make us miserable?
They, in latter days, they stayed on mountain peaks, and places where they were okay, or in their city-like ships. As the centuries went on, they had more and more sophisticated stuff. The great big rocket ships that they had to use were because when they were moving heavy gold, are really different than the way they travel now. They travel just like the other spacefaring people, and they have there's many beautiful planets, even especially Icarus, a moon of Jupiter, has got a big. It's supposed to be very beautiful. Our astronauts who went to Serpo loved it so much they said this is like Idaho or Wyoming. 4 of them spent the rest of their lives there. They were really happy. So there's a lot of other places, and the Maya are supposedly transporting people that they liberate from the German bases on nice planets. In case they can't return to Earth, they have a place to be, and the Maya are taking care of educating them and keeping them okay. So there's that. But we're going back to this thing about Nimma and how it wasn't just that she birthed them even. It was like she and then Damkina, who later on is going to do the first female, they raised these kids. They taught them just like they had to read, do math, and make stuff. They educated their kids.
Right. They didn't treat them as less than. These were their children. So she literally breastfed them. She didn't schlep it off to somebody else. Here, you take care of this kid. No, she gave birth and she raised it and educated it and loved it. And it was these children with this DNA from the Earthlings were their real children. They loved them.
I would say that it wasn't just it was a stage where they were making clones, and it wasn't just Damkina and Nimma. But she asked the doctors, the doctor corps among the Anunnaki are females, so that she had these birth mothers, the 12 birth heroes, and they went through 7 different cycles and they swore they would raise these kids and love them their own, and they were getting exhausted. And that's when Nagashita discovered, said, heck with this, let's just make them so they can, he isolated XX and XY chromosomes and said, let's see what happens if we make, maybe they'll breed faster than we can ever if you do the math, in a few generations, this is way better than making clones. And these are educated doctors using like a breeding machines. What are we, Greys or something?
No. Yeah. So I don't know where I was going, but I just went down your thread. So they were.
Well, where we're going is, what's your advice to humanity, Nima?
Well, then that's way down the tracks. So I'm trying to go in sequence there, and I'm winging it. So okay, so we had the creation of humanity, and I just totally forgot where it was. But what I was doing in my book is I was researching what happened through time, and what's going on till this day. So I was looking at some incidents of Mary, the Mary figure that comes around and presents herself. And Glenn Bogue, who's been on our show a number of times, and I've got to get his latest book, which I don't think he released it because it was so hot politically. He's a lawyer, and he was getting a lot of flack for publishing his book. So I think he was going to publish it, and they pulled it back because they were threatening him, with his job and stuff like that. And but basically, I'm following his thread because I think this information is important. His theory is that Jesus is Enki is Jesus, and Mary, both Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary, are warpings of the information, and that all these stories of virgin births are based on the Anunnaki's intervention into the affairs of humanity. Just like the Greys are coming in and making hybrid babies, the Anunnaki came in, and if they wanted a lineage, they had their favorite humans, and they wanted them to do certain projects or rule or, be priests or whatever. And if the couple that they had selected were unable to give birth to children naturally, they intervened, and they did this hybridization program. So the initial hybridization, when they created the first Homo sapiens and then the second Homo sapiens, that wasn't it. We've had intervention all along. And so special children, like the Jesus story, have been born all along, in different generations. Like Mary herself, the Mother Mary, apparently was a virgin birth, and so the story of Mary is she was put into a special, the Essenes, the temples. They were raised in the temple, right? So these special children are raised in the temple, and then they're told, "Oh, you're going to be the mother of a special child." So all these special people that have a more recent influx of Anunnaki DNA are created through these various hybridization programs all throughout time. And I don't have that in front of me because this is all ad-libbing, but I was researching that part, and I'm putting that in a future book about all these quote-unquote virgin births, which are actually stories of artificial insemination by the Anunnaki. And oftentimes they have these old women, like how old was Sarah?
She was in her 90s
or something.
It may not be artificial at all, because what I know about their practices is they were anointing people continually with oil, cannabinoid oils, and absorbing it, and especially if it's Enki involved. He ain't gonna do it artificially. I already know the dude. He wouldn't.
Well, so you're saying that Enki went around and copulated with everybody. There still might.
I didn't say everybody. Said with. I didn't say everybody. He always got consent, and he always had a loving feeling, and he connected. And
I don't
that's
think
just
that's
way.
True.
I've read
sometimes
I
think it might be some, but I don't think it's. I think that when he was active, with the earlier generations, he was. But Anyway, so we don't know.
Everything I've read where Enki is dictating, it shows that he is he connects. He really connects.
Right. So that was the story of Ziusudra, which is Noah. So Noah was the result of direct copulation. It wasn't a artificial
that's right.
type of performance, right? But we also have stories of a a couple that cannot conceive, and then there's some kind of intervention, and then they miraculously give birth to children at a very, very old age. So we have those various stories looking through the Bible and looking through all the information. So we have these mysteries. But if you just look at the whole history of the Bible and the world, and you say that the Anunnaki were here, and you start putting, Enki or Anu in place of God everywhere you read it, right? You start a different picture emerges about the history.
Absolutely.
And then, so what I've been doing is studying the symbols. So the different gods and goddesses and spiritual religious beings have symbols. And one of the major symbols they have is an aura. And the aura is sometimes accompanied by a circle of stars. So you can have, and then the aura sometimes is accompanied with horns or spires or whatever you want to call them, like the Statue of Liberty. That's a goddess. That is, who was the Statue of Liberty?
It's Utu, Shamash.
So it's
a man.
It's actually a god. It's a god. But a lot of the Anunnaki were androgynous looking. It's Inanna's twin. And so we think that's a woman, but the model for the Statue of Liberty is actually Utu Shamash, a god. And he's got these, points coming out. And so that's the symbol of a crown. That's the symbol of an Anunnaki. The aura, and then the earlier renditions, let me get to that picture, is, let's see, the solar disk above the head. So the Egyptian bronze statue of Iris holding Horus as a child has horns, like a cow's horn, but in the middle is a solar disk. So we're looking at these headdresses that the gods and goddesses wore, and the spheres and the solar disk, and how they morphed into the auras or the halos. And all these were indicating the same group of people, the gods and goddesses and the Anunnaki, which mutated and got taken over when Marduk was left as king of the earth, ruler of the earth, supreme being. And then he said, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." And so we went from the worships of the gods and goddess to monotheism, one God. And then he claimed that he was all the gods. So I find that very interesting. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's kind of interesting because then you have this transition periods. First of all, about the people of Canaan, or what we would now call Palestine or Israel, were Anunnaki. They came from Marduk's wedding, and Marduk was marrying one of a descendant of Noah's mother, anyway, and Sarpanit. So all these Anunnaki, full-blooded Anunnaki, led by Shamgaz, who were working on Mars base, and the shuttlecraft between Earth and Mars, came down for Marduk's wedding, which is held at Eridu. We call it Basra now, and Anu had ruled that Marduk could marry Sarpanit and have that legal marriage that would be written in their books, but he could never ever return to Nibiru, where he had a claim that he should be king and not Anu anyway. And neither could Sarpanit, neither could his kids, but go ahead and have the marriage, and then you can go live in a place that Enki gives you. And I heard Enki is giving you, I gave Enki Africa, and Enki's going to give you Egypt. So you fly off, Marduk, Anu said, to Egypt and live with Sarpanit there and get out of my hair. And so anyway, all the astronauts came down. They're full-on Anunnaki, great big guys. And the servants were all Sarpanit's friends, who are what we call these Dapites, the most intelligent courtesan, house servant, beautiful women. And they either, the reality is they had planned to elope and it was all set up. And so after Marduk and Sarpanit flew off, these guys took these girls and they went off. They first of all captured the landing platform at Baalbek in Lebanon, and they trained their guns on Wadi Batira, where Enlil was, and said, we can blow you up now, but we just want you to recognize our right to live here. By force of arms, we want to settle on Earth and have families, and we're sick of just working all the time. And Marduk's in the meantime nagging, Enlil, listen, Commander, we don't need to blow each other up. Just let them settle in this place. What the heck? And so, Enlil realized, oh my gosh, Marduk is in league with Shamgaz. Of course, they worked together on Mars base before they had to abandon the place. So that's the background of so anyone that is intermarrying, the Philistines, Goliath, the people of Canaan, there's more and more Anunnaki blood, and they fully intermarried and had children with each other.
Right. So maybe we should take the time now to clarify the difference. So we have the Elohim, the what were the ones called from the Gigi, and we have all these stories that end up in mythology that Mars invaded the Earth and
that's right,
these huge battles.
That's right.
But
that's
part
true.
of that confusion was the 200 Mars astronauts that came down for Marduk's wedding, and they called the rape of the Sabine women, and it's a rape, but they actually. Well, weren't they consensual?
Of course,
they wanted to get married to these Anunnaki.
Yeah. Oh, the evidence is overwhelming that if they went from being a servant to being a queen in their own little. No, it was definitely arranged. At least their leaders were totally in on this. It was orchestrated. Igigi is just the Akkadian word for the astronaut corps, and they had a station that hung in one place right over Wadi Batira for the first transfer of the gold ingots, and from there it was transferred to Mars base, and Marduk ran Mars base, but he actually had come to Mars base to hang the body of the guy, his predecessor there. So that was the first invasion from Mars. That was when Anzu I said he was representing all the guys that were working in Mars base, the Gigi, and he came down and Enlil said, "I'll show you, why I'm giving you such short rations and making you work so hard, and but we got to go in the room where it's sterile." And so they stripped out, and Anzu stole Enlil's Yahweh's keys, went in the computer room and took control of the whole thing, and his boys came down and again conquered the landing platform and said, "Okay, we won." And Enki, in the meantime, got his nephew, "Hey, Ninurta, I made a fighter plane, and I know the plane that Anzu's going. Here's how you get him." And so Ninurta, that's Nimba's son, incidentally, flew up there, and he shot Anzu down, and they dragged Anzu before the council, and then Ninurta was ordered to execute it. And so that was the first invasion of Martians. Yes, they invaded. And then the second one is that invasion that we just talked about, where the Gigi and ran off with 200 of the Adapite women. And so those are at least two invasions from Mars. But there was an even earlier invasion from Mars, if I do say, which is when the Dracos were still in charge of Lemuria, and they were just, the Atlans were just landing in Atlantis. And they took some of the people, the Maldecans, who had been, after the Dracos destroyed Maldek, these Maldecans had been sheltering in Mars, underground, with the Martians. And the Martians said, "Get these guys out of there. They're just in our hair." And we gave them shelter, but we have an immigrant crisis here. And we can't send them back to where they came from because it doesn't exist anymore. So why don't you use them as soldiers? And the Maldecans said, yeah. So they sent them to the Gobi Desert. Okay, so they came from Mars to the Gobi Desert. That was the third influx of Anunnaki to the Earth. And then, of course, there was this great big recent influx, which is when in December 21st, 2012, a whole bunch of Anunnaki came back and pledged to try to clean up the mess that Marduk has made. But that's another story. You're telling what Nimmo wants, baby. What's Nimmo want?
Well, yeah, and it's okay. We're just talking. Okay, so I wanted to go back and get a couple pieces. So the connection between Mars and the Earth has been ongoing. There are still people up there. It ties in with the secret space program. We get all these whistleblowers and secret space program people, and they're talking about their interaction with Mars people. There's an indigenous Mars species, or two or three. They're apparently creatures that are much like our dinosaurs. So there appears to be some kind of connection there where creatures were being sent back and forth. So we have similar beings that are developing on two different planets. There's some spider being that we hear about. And actually, it seems like some of the Martian stories about the huge spiders that can kill people and eat them has integrated into our culture, because we have J.R.R. Tolkien, who has the story of Bilbo and Frodo fighting these giant spiders, right? But that doesn't happen here, but that is a typical Mars story that we hear from, I guess it depends on where you're stationed, but some of the secret space program 20 and back people have been stationed where they interacted with the huge spiders, and some of them have been killed, and then they get revived in the rejuvenation tanks, regen tanks. So what do you think of that, honey? We got these spider stories that...
Well, you're alluding, of course, to Penny Bradley.
Right. And I've heard it from a couple others, too, but Penny.
He says it hurts every time. And, if you watched... what was it called? This old science fiction thing where the Cylons could be reborn.
Battlestar Galactica, yeah.
It's and so that they have the experience of dying lots of times. They're split into alters that can be killed and revived. They tell us, and so when you start looking at it that way, it's not just that there's invasions from Mars. It's that the same organizations have taken over this entire part of the solar system, and probably they're under a council which meets in Iapetus, which is a moon of Jupiter's, and is meets with Federation representatives, meet with people from other parts of the galaxy. That is the information that people seem to be converging upon. I've never seen anything like that, but Janet has been at some of these meetings, and so it's quite a thing.
So I want to still do the Earth-Mars connection a little bit, and then now I'm going to bring Nimma into this. So Nimma, her first time down to the Earth was, so we had Enki coming through, and you were telling the story earlier, how Alalo came through and he used nukes, which lasted a part of the what's that called, the field they go through with all the asteroid. Which one is that? The one close to Mars?
That's the inner one. Right? That's the one that's between Jupiter and Mars. That's the asteroid belt. That's different than the one that's further out. That's called the Kuiper belt. That's from where Maldek was. Right. Yeah, Maldek was on the other side.
The inner asteroid belt was an obstacle for the incoming craft coming from the Nibiru. So Alalu used nukes, which is supposed to be illegal according to the Federation to not use nukes, but he used nukes. And then when Enki came through, he used water, so he became known as Aquarius, the water bearer, and he's also known as Ea. Well, Ea was his
Ea means water.
What does Ea mean? Water. And then he's also known as Neptune and Poseidon, and he was given rulership over the oceans and all the ocean colonies. But anyway, so he landed on Mars to replenish his water supply that he had to use to get through the asteroid belt. So do you know, how did Enki know there was water on Mars? That he exhausted his water?
Because they well knew, they alluded to books that Alalu and other learned people, and Enki certainly was a learned person, and his mother was a Pleiadian. The Federation had records. They knew. They had mapped this place out. They had tried to put, they had fought a war where they had the Martians who were had full-on flight machines, and they were Pleiadians, Lyrans too, who escaped. They had their fleet. They attacked the Dracos that were in Venus. The Federation sent and had a huge war for Venus, and they won, and the Dracos left, and they had a fight for the moon, and the Dracos retreated to Earth and underground. But it was repeated. There was a whole huge war, and Earth was just part of a smaller scene. And and so how Enki knew is because there was a big federation, and it had records and star maps. People in Hawaii are worried about whether or not we have this one little telescope, which is supposed to show them this. And you should see all these ships have telescopes. The star maps these spacefarers have, and our Navy has, are incredible. We don't need to fight over some little piece of ground that the Hawaiians want to worship. Let them do it. I show our respect for their culture because we have information. Enki and Alalu both alluded to books. They said books, and I don't know whether they mean literal books or they use a word like that so we can. But records, some of it they were studying. Records. So they knew. They knew there was gold here. They sent testers, not people, but they sent bots too. And so they knew it, and the obstacles as big as Ceres are obviously, these are gigantic things. It's easy to see them, but there's a little one can ruin a spaceship. And the reason they have these big clumsy spaceships is because these were warships. They weren't meant to go anywhere, the ones that they should start with. And then Enki designed some spaceships to handle gold, which was very, very heavy.
Right. So they evolved, and they had rocket technology, and they developed into transporters, teleportation, and time travel and the whole thing. So we're talking about 450,000 years ago. And of course, the Anunnaki evolved just like we evolved. So, and we're going to be coming up in 1 minute or so to the break. So I just wanted to finish tying it in.
They had records of earlier civilizations of Lyrans who had settled Earth and been wiped out by environmental disasters. They knew about the people under the ground.
They knew about all these.
They knew about Romania. They knew the history. They were like 100 years or 50 years ahead of our science, but we know the kind of things they knew.
Right. And we are finding remains of beings that were far older than the Anunnaki. So this is a universal story that we're piecing together here. And the Anunnaki was the most recent ones, and they left us a lot of information because they gave us language and writing. And Thoth Nagashita wrote over 1 million books that he left to humanity so we could figure all this out.
There were people
so they didn't want us to be
here.
ignorant. There are people already here, and it's been settled for how many billions of years? Yeah. I guess when a planet gets to a certain point, they start settling it. We're at the top of the hour. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, guests.
Thank you.
Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.
Syndicalist commune. We take it in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week. Yes. But all the decisions of that officer have to be ratified at a special bi-weekly meeting. Yes, I see. By a simple majority in the case of purely internal affairs. Be quiet. But by a 2/3 majority in the case of more... Be quiet. I order you to be quiet. Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look! Just a flesh wound.
I don't believe I've seen such a display of courage, skill, nerve, grace, and stupidity.
I'll do you for that. Oh, what? Come here. What are you going to do, bleed on me? I'm invincible. You're a loony. The Black Knight always triumphs.
Roundtable Live, Monday through Friday, 1 a.m. till 4 a.m. Eastern Time. Bring your mind, bring your ideas, bring your voice. King Arthur had nothing on us. Here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com.
Enjoy your extra big-ass fries.
You didn't give me no fries. I got an empty box.
Would you like another? Extra big-ass fries.
I said I didn't get any.
Thank you. Your account has been charged. Your balance is 0. Please come back when you can afford to make a purchase.
No.
I'm sorry you're having
trouble.
Come on.
My kids are starving.
Thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we believe in freedom of ideas, freedom of speech, but above all, we believe in freedom of existence through self-reliance. This station is 100% listener-supported, and as a fundraising promotion, I have a kick-ass free gift for a $100 donation. 35,000 seeds. 25 years in the freezer. Long-term storable, 54 different varieties. So if food prices go crazy, the shit hits the fan, or if you just want to save tons of money every year by creating your own food like I do, grab our seed pack special. Just look for the banner on the homepage at freedomslips.com. Don't be a statistic. Don't be part of the problem. be part of the solution. We need, as humans, to start taking care of ourselves and not depending on the megacorps to provide unhealthy, nasty food. Included in this package is also a DVD with 900 survival and off-grid living documents and the offline home canning how to do everything website all on the DVD. So when you're growing all that food, you know how to can it, store it, preserve it, etc. with all these documents. So thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I hope that you will pick up this package and start learning to be free. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps and freedom is one seed that needs to be planted.
What we do in life, it goes in eternity.
Thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we are listener-sponsored and commercial-free. But there still are bills to pay. In order to raise some needed funds to cover the cost, our station is offering a silver special. In the continental United States for a $60 donation, or in Alaska, Hawaii, or Canada for a $70 donation, we will send you an uncirculated 2018 1-ounce pure silver eagle. The $70 donation, the extra 10 is to cover shipping, by the way, outside of the continental United States. When making the donation, you must put Silver Eagle promo in the notes on the donation. And thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at revolution.radio and freedomslips.com. Without you, there is no us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
It happens more often than we can imagine. In my case, I was sitting at home, and out of nowhere, I just started feeling uncomfortable. Then it got worse, and I started perspiring. I tried to ignore it, but I waited too long. The chest pain came as we were driving to the hospital emergency. I felt my life clock begin to tick. I barely survived. There was lots of damage done to my heart. What do I do now? I was lucky. I took a leap of faith and tried a 7-herb formula with hawthorn, garlic, cayenne, and more called Extendivite. Herbs have been used for thousands of years to keep us healthy. If you're not using Extendivite as a preventative supplement, maybe it's time to start. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Aloha and welcome back to the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio. Studio B, I'm your host, Janet Lessin, and Dr. Sasha Lessin. Our producer is Thomas Becker, and we had Robert Vandenbroek scheduled, but he didn't make it, so we're talking about the Anunnaki, and we have a new book coming up. What's our new book's name? Anunnaki, Evolution of the Gods. So we're seeing how they too have grown and evolved and are becoming more and more conscious. But we're backtracking a little bit into the history to get everybody up to par with where we are. And as we're writing this book, we're solving more and more of the mysteries that we had in our own mind. But before I get back to what we're talking about, I'd like to remind everybody to please go over to that donation button on revolution.radio and make your donation. We really need your donations to keep this boat afloat and the lights on. And we are very grateful for every penny you give us. So thank you very much for donating. So, anybody have anything to say? Mad, Sash, before we get back into the subject? Any burning shares or announcements or? Okay, I guess not.
No. I would just like to go on with our story because, we are hybrids and we are Anunnaki and Enki. We began this discussion about whether they favored artificial insemination or other methods. And so let's look at some of the evidence that I was studying. And this is the story of what happened because for many, many years, we Earthlings worked in South African mines, digging, and they fed us. And when we were old, they let us go out in the bush. And sometimes there was little revolts, and people ran away and made their own civilization. But basically, we were slaves. But when times got tough, remember there was these great big cinder blocks that hit Mars base and ruined the crops on Earth. It was like a bad time. Earth went through a bad time. And people that were the slaves in the mines saying, what the heck are we doing? There's not enough to eat. We have our little gardens. We're wasting our time getting this yellow, these big guys. Let's get out of here. And so a lot of them went off and stopped working. And so Enlil, the commander, that's Yahweh, said to Enki, hey, your slaves are junk. They're wandering off into the bush. Can't you make better slaves that'll obey us better and make them smarter? Smarter means they obey us instead of going off. And Enki said, oh, yeah, boss, I think I know a way. So we will tell you the story about what happened starting about 200,000 years ago when Enki begat enhanced hybrids. Janet, do start.
Okay, so yeah, we're reading from Marduk Anunnaki, King of Earth, which is a book by Sasha, Lessin, and Janet Lessin. It's book 4 of the Anunnaki series. And so, why did you start, honey? Because I'm not quite sure where you wanted me to start.
So,
you said page 222, but I don't know where.
Okay, yeah, that's...
Adapa trained and oversaw the workers Anunnaki brought from Africa.
So as African, so it start out where it's, Enki has agreed. If you look down the last paragraph, page 222, Enki has agreed with the boss. He is going to give the boss what he wants. He knows just how to do it. So you read the last paragraph on page 220.
Oh, okay, because I'm on 222. Okay. So 200,000, the year 200,000, or 200,000 years ago, I guess it is. Enki begat enhanced hybrids. So Nibiru's nearing also upset our climate and ruined crops. And Earthlings had foraged far, but they made less food. And our standard of living worsened, and we took to bush and cave dwelling. The following generation showed less advanced standards of civilized life. From 20,000 to 11,000 BCE, the regressing and dwindling population reached almost complete absence of habitation. So Enlil told Enki to make Earthlings smart enough to farm and herd better. And Enki decided to raise our intelligence and at the same time enjoy himself. So that's when in the African Reserve, Enki and the Martians, he looked about, and with him was Ishmael, his vizier, and he was a secret keeper. And on the river's bank, Enki saw 2 frolicking Earthlings, and they were wild with beauty, firm with their breasts. So these are translations of the ancient Sumerian, very interesting stories. And I'm not going to read that part. Anyway, Enki started to feel desire, and so he went to a young one. He bent down and kissed her, and so it gets kind of sexual. So he got her pregnant, and one of the girls bore a boy named Adapa, And, then he coupled with the second so he had these 2 young women he coupled with them. And, but he didn't tell anybody that he had fathered these children, because he was under this dictate from his brother Enlil, who was in charge of the earth, to make smarter earthlings. But I don't think Enlil meant for Enki to go out and have sex with 2 earthling girls. He just wanted him to do something else. So he kept his fatherhood secret. And then the children were born, and Damkina, his wife, Enki's wife, took a liking to Titi, and so she taught her all manners of crafts. All manners of craft she was teaching. And to Adapa, Enki gave his teachings, and he taught him how to keep records. And Enki boasted, and they kind of speak in this backwards English, or I guess we're speaking in backwards English. A civilized man I have brought forth, a new kind of earthling from my seed has been created in my image and after my likeness. From seed from food will grow, from ewes, sheep they will shepherd. And Anunnakis and earthlings henceforth shall be satiated. Okay. So, your turn.
Enki's school Enki took charge of really teaching Adapa, really teaching him. He wanted to make Adapa the foreman of all the other earthlings, and so he had to run the herds, he had to run the farms, he had to run the estates. So he started running everything, and he was like a prime minister. And he started, the other bosses, who had their different settlements and fiefs, all said, send me some of Adapa's kids, and here's some young ones, train them, to be my household servants and so forth. So Adapa trained, and he oversaw, all these workers. He bossed the bakers. He figured out the water system. He made sure the fishermen supplied the Anunnaki and had enough food for themselves. He kept the statistics, and especially he was in charge of offerings to Enki. He knew where the money went. Now, Enki told
right. So
Adapa,
is that really money, or was it just things? Or I don't think they really. Wasn't it much later that they introduced the monetary system?
That's a metaphor. You're quite right.
Okay.
They weren't doing money. I was using that as a metaphor. He was in charge of the offerings to Enki, and what Enki usually liked was party and make. He was fond of beer. They knew they gave him what he wanted.
They ate the bread of life and they drank the water of life.
No, it doesn't.
Hundreds of thousands of years.
No,
it
Janet.
does. Further down.
You don't understand at all. No, what Enki is saying is a Nibiru. That's what they had. He's not saying that the slaves had that. You've got it completely mixed up, darling. What happened, if you understand a little, let me just explain it, okay? Because you don't understand. Because the whole story doesn't make sense.
Far enough down.
Listen, here's what happened. Janet's a little confused. What happened is this guy was so smart, he was running everything. And Enki relaxed around him, and he told him how to make it. He gave him his own airplane, all kinds of things. But one of the things he did was he said, on Nibiru, son, you're not going to live as long as, I know you're not going to be around as long as me because you need to get these substances that we have on Nibiru, to live, as long as we do, like, it seems like forever. And we can extend it because, there's this, it's only if you eat the bread of life and drink the water of life, which you could only get on Nibiru, that you can have eternal life. And it wasn't that, Enki was saying that the slaves got that at all. What he was saying is...
No, I didn't say that.
Huh? He was saying that...
So what you're saying is that Adapa wanted to have that, and Enki was telling him, no, you're not going to get
Enki
it
never,
like they
Enki,
did with...
No, Enki never... See, he's a little underhanded. Enki never said no to his kid. Absolutely not. No, you're wrong, Janet. He did not say no to his kid. What he said is, oh, yeah, this is what they have, but you're never going to Nibiru because Earthlings aren't allowed in Nibiru. And so forth. But Adapa flew his airplane. He got a little harp thing where he changed the wind so he could blow a sailboat up the Red Sea. He did all these things, and Enlil's spies said, "What in the world is with this Earthling overseer that Enki has been turned everything over to? This young man is amazing genius. What the hell?" And so one of them told, they talked to Anu on Nibiru about it. And Anu said, "Send me that kid. I want to see for myself. This is actually my great grandson in some sense. I want to see him." And so Enki said, "Far out. I'll send him. I'm going to send his brothers. I'm going to send Dumuzi, my youngest son, and Ningishita, my genius other son, to keep him company, and we'll send him." And he gave Ningishita these little rolled up tablets. He said, "Slip these to Anu, okay? When you get there, give them to Dad." And so they get there, and Enki said, "No matter what, they're going to offer. Anu might offer Adapa before you go. Adapa, I want you to know, Anu might offer you the bread of life, and he might offer you a drink of the water of life. Don't accept it, whatever you do, or you'll die." Now, that isn't the case. He wouldn't have died at all. Enki wanted his son back, and he went for a number of reasons, but he did not want to lose Adapa. But probably the main reason is he did not want to lose his son. And so they get there, and there's the king, and Ningishita gives them to Anu. Anu reads the little tablets, and it says, "Look, this kid is my son. I got to admit, I know we're not supposed to make babies with the other race, but they were so pretty, I couldn't resist. And Dad, you know how I am." And Anu said to Ningishita, "Wow, you look like you're not surprised. Listen, grandfather, I took blood samples of everybody, so I already knew." He's a scientist. Mm-hmm. So then he sends Adapa back with Ningishita. They go back to Earth, and Dumuzi stays there to learn all about animal husbandry and how to make mixtures to sheep and cows and things they're going to do for Earth. And so he stays there to study for a while. And Adapa flies back to Earth with Ningishita and goes on to breed and breed and breed and breed and breed and have a good old time in Zimbabwe.
Okay. So Adapa came back. Anu was not shocked about his son because he knows his son. Okay, so Anu gave
what happens?
Grains. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's interesting what happens next with the Adapa's kids. Why don't you take a look at page 224, and let's see what happens with Adapa's kids. Janet will start with telling you about a couple of kids that Adapa had.
Okay, so anyway, Anu gave Ningishita the grain seeds and told him to take them and Adapa back to Earth. So whenever they would come back to Earth, they would increase the varieties of foods that we had here. So this is a very important thing. It might just be a little passing sentence, but we got all this stuff from Nibiru. We didn't have cows. We didn't have a lot of these grains and stuff. They were developed off planet and then sent here so we would have a more diverse food base because our population was growing and we needed a lot of different things to eat in order to grow the population. It went hand in hand.
The grain,
population.
They made the grain into beer because beer can stay
another part.
Because it stays. Whereas the grain would just be, the Anunnaki, of course, they had bread and all kinds of things, but the regular people just had beer. And the Anunnaki loved beer. They partied with beer.
So then another thing they brought back were sheep and goat sperm, and they were teaching them how to inseminate and get the herds up of these animals, because they needed to have more animals, which were used not only for food, but the wool was used for. So they were really upleveling the civilization that humanity had, going from just wild creatures to having more diverse foods and clothing and that type of thing. So he was teaching his nephew. Tammuz would bring the goats and sheep sperm, and he teaches his nephew Abel. So we're talking about the world famous Cain and Abel. They are the children. Who are they? The children of Cain and Abel, honey?
They're the children of Tiamat.
Tiamat and Adapa.
No, it's not that simple. Cain is the direct son of Enki. Abel is the son.
So that
Abel's the son of Adamu and Tiamat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it says that Enki begat Cain with his daughter Chi-Chi. And Chi-Chi bore Abel and Cain, and they were in the womb together. Cain and Abel were twins, right?
They were fraternal twins.
Right. And so that's a piece of information that lacked in the straight biblical thing, but that we find in this Sumerian text. They were biblical. They were fraternal twins. Let's see what else went. So then we have Adapa's son Cain killed Abel. So what was behind that fight?
Oh, okay. So what happened?
Just summarize it here.
What happened was that as soon as Dumuzi got back with all this stuff, he was going to handle all of it, and right away, Ninurta, Enlil's son, said, "Look, we're going to take care of farming. We're going to have a monopoly on farming, and that's how it goes." And so we are going to take Cain, and we're going to train Cain how to be a farmer, because he's going to run the farmers on this planet, and we're going to make sure we have vegetables. So Enki says to Marduk, "Hey, look, you can't let that other lineage just take over everything. You be Abel's sponsor, and you teach him all about herds and stuff like that, and give that to them." So it became a rivalry between Enki's clan, represented by Marduk and Abel, and Enlil's clan, represented by Ninurta and Cain. So at one point, the herder, Abel, takes his animals to drink at the irrigation ditch that Cain had made to water his stuff. And they started fighting over it, and Cain killed Abel. And everybody wanted to kill Cain. And Enki finally had to say, "You can't kill him. Even ask your dad, this is my son, and my dad is king of Nibiru. You can't kill him." Okay, well, let's just send him to India, or send him east of Eden. Send him east of here, maybe by Inanna's place on the Indus River. But get him and mark him genetically so that he doesn't have any hair on his chinny chin, and neither will his descendants. And we'll know that they are descendants of this person that killed his own brother. And we're not going to kill him, but let him go east of Eden. And of course, later on, Ningishita starts bringing them over, some of those East Indians over to Teotihuacan in the Valley of Mexico, and Tiwanaku atop the Andes. And so the so-called South American Indians are really the descendants of Cain. The South American Indians are Sumerians. That's where they're from.
So these people are, they don't have facial hair.
They don't have as much.
Is that what you're saying?
Through the years, they've interbred.
Right, so they have hair.
Plus,
mm-hmm.
plus, when Marduk was in exile, he proselytized among the American Indians who had come in from the north, and they had been, especially a lot of them had been preserved during by their allies. There were other extraterrestrials in North America. It was kind of a melting pot. Everyone seemed to gather around Lake Michigan, where there was this unbelievable amount of copper. They just loved copper, all the ETs. So there was all different kinds of ETs would gather around the Great Lakes, but especially around Lake Michigan.
So then another thing that this left out of the Bible is that TT and Abe, which are Adam and Eve. TT and Daph are Adam and Eve, right? Another variation of Adam and Eve.
Yes,
they
right.
bore 30 sons and daughters. So she didn't just have the twins, because people in the Bible, who did they breed with? They only have these two. But a lot of times there were a lot more children born. They just talk about the most, renowned ones, the ones that are known. But they had 30 sons and daughters.
Okay, so then let's say each of their kids had 30. And each of the kids had 30. You see and these people lived a lot longer in those days. People, even Earthlings lived hundreds of years. So we were breeding, we were great slaves.
So, and there's also a story how Adam lived to be 900 years. So, you have all these, there's a story of how if you have two cats that breed here in Hawaii within, 3, 4, 5 years, they can have 30,000 offspring, right? So imagine humans that live 900 years, how many offspring they could have. And then people think 30 kids, they have this poor woman pregnant in her life, but she might have lived, 900 years. So 30 kids over 900 years is, spread out, right? Really spread out. So we don't know how fast she had them and how often, and maybe she had more than 30. So we have a big story here that we don't have all the pieces of. So these children, the Anunnaki were doing everything they could to bring civilization to humanity. So they really cared about us. They gave a damn, right? They wanted us to rise above and not be primitive.
There were different groups of them. They wanted us to rise to a level of obedience, but not to thinking for ourselves.
Well, they taught them math, astronomy, how to cultivate crops and dig wells and husband animals. And, they taught them how to make oils, euphoric antioxidants, grapes, beer from barley. They learned to build furnaces and kilns, smelt and refine vitamins, play the harp and flute. So they're not just giving them basic things; they're giving them a society. They're giving them civilization.
Yeah. That's after the flood, absolutely after the flood. And what we found out about that is that Enki thought ultimately that life on Nibiru was doomed. That there wasn't enough people there. They didn't breed well enough. They were getting radiation poisoning, and he saw the time when Nibiru would have to do be abandoned by its population, and they wanted to come to Earth and have a level 2 civilization, have a civilization that isn't at war. And so that part of their motive was to give us genes that would be active at the right time when the galactic core was aligned with it, and we were aligned with the galactic core center, so that they could begin the process of making it compatible for them to openly walk among us as our, we are the children that grew up. And one of the things to always remember, if you know how to center yourself, is that you have something unique to give and the other person learns from you just as you learn from them when you form a coherent field. And it's neither as good or better, but when you're in a field with an extraterrestrial, like an Anunnaki, they can learn from you and your passions, and you can learn from them and their passions.
Well, I wanted to back up a little bit because you said something very important here. So they became aware at some point that their very own survival became intertwined with these creatures they were creating to preserve their own society and even their own. It's kind of like the Gray story. The Greys are making hybrid humans because the Greys are going extinct, and the Anunnaki were facing possible extinction as well. But apparently the Anunnaki are still alive. There's a lot of them still alive, but we have no idea what their population is. We don't know if they have thousands or tens of thousands or millions, or if they're down to, just a few hundred. We don't know what's really going on there. We just have this truncated history. It's all warped and manipulated, confused. But now we see history repeating itself, though. You were just telling me about the latest article in the Economist about the climate issue, and anyway, I'm going to read this sometime today and tomorrow and get my head around it. But apparently, we're reaching some points of no return, which was what was happening with the Anunnaki. They were going, oh my God, we've just abused Nibiru so bad. We've had nuclear war and radiation, and we've destroyed our ecosystem. We've destroyed our, what was that called? The ozone. So there were holes in it, and radiation was coming in, and their population had become, most of them sterile, infertile, and, unable to, keep it going. Although we have Anu who went back and he's still ruling Nibiru, so there must have been something
no, he's
made
not
there.
still. No, he has abdicated, Janet.
I mean, in this story that we covered in the Anunnaki, but he's now in the recent history we heard that he's abdicated. And we don't know if he's dead or he just abdicated, stepped down, and retired, whatever. But back in the story, right, when we were talking about 186,000 years ago, Anu's still there. Even though things were deteriorating, he stayed on Nibiru. He wanted to be king of Nibiru, and he kept coming back to visit periodically, right?
That's
so
right. Yes.
They still have life going on there. They didn't reach the point of destruction, but you're saying that Anunnaki became aware that, he's now codependent with humanity. They need humanity as much as we need them.
That's right. But
we needed them to start up, and they needed us to.
It's not just Enki. It's like anybody that understood their ecology, just like anyone that understands our ecology, can see that they've reached there's a tipping point where life is your species. It's easier for them to relocate less than it is to adapt anymore, and so. And I think that's what's really interesting for the listener is we all have Anunnaki genes in us, and now they are starting to awaken, and it would be very useful if you would just sort of tune into the Anunnaki you have inside you, the very, very wise person that has the bigger picture. And you look at humanity and look at your life and how it fits in with that of the rest of humanity. From your perspective of someone who's leaving their planet that was destroyed by thermonuclear war and its results and brutalized into dictatorships and enslavement and caste system, obsessed with hierarchy, and as above, so below in both ways. And what we need to do to teach them is to get to that peaceful place inside of ourselves. To the Anunnakis, like the Buddha and Jesus, that have basically said you can break through humanity if you feel your unity with the other beings and retain your individuality at the same time. That's all we got to do. Activate your Anunnaki.
Right. And then I wanted to tie that in. I was looking at this economistic climate issue. It's the latest issue, I guess. They're saying that it's important to understand that all the things that climate change is not. It's not the end of the world. Humankind is not poised, teetering on the edge of extinction. The planet itself is not in peril. Earth is a tough old thing, will survive. And though much may be lost, most of the wondrous life that makes Earth unique, as far as astronomers can yet tell, will persist. Climate change is, though, a dire threat to countless people, one that is planetary in scope. If not in its absolute stakes, it will displace tens of millions. At the very least, it will disrupt farms on which billions rely. It will dry up wells and water mains. It will flood low-lying places, and as time goes by, higher standing ones, too. Anyway, we are cyclical in nature, and they had the same challenges that we have. And they decided to relocate to Earth, and we have humans here on Earth that are talking about relocating to Mars. So I guess Mars at one time went through a cycle and became almost uninhabitable, and they recovered over the last 400, 500,000 years. So I guess if things get too dire and we destroy too much, then if we cycle out, the Earth itself will survive, and she will replenish herself. And I guess it's obly-do, obly-da, life goes on. La, 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 life goes on, right? Okay. So let me go back to the book. So then they started with
what I suggest you do, Janet, is to take the story further about just how we need to learn the lesson, how Marduk was in charge for so long. I suggest you turn to page 78, and we'll talk about the story of Sodom and Gomorrah and how Marduk came to be in charge and grind down women.
I wanted to finish this thing here because this was getting to something really relevant. So Nanar. So you introduced Nanar. I guess he was introduced early in the book, but I'm coming in the middle of the book. And so he made some of Adappa's descendants priests. And so this is the introduction of religion. Page 225. It's the second paragraph.
In
Nanar made some of Adappa's, in Marduk, yeah, we're still in Marduk. So Nanar made some of Adappa's descendants priests, and the priests led rituals for the earthlings and taught them to support, obey, and worship Nanar and the other Anunnaki as gods. So Nanar was, so just tell our listeners who Nanar is and why is he important.
Yes. Okay. So Nanar is the child of a terrible rape. This basically
between whom?
Wait, let me just focus for a minute, okay, Janet? You're jumping me around.
Okay.
You could talk now. Let me just unscramble for a minute.
Okay. Unscramble. So.
Okay. So if I may then.
Sure.
And Enlil, the commander of the earth, had as his first child Ninurta with Nimma, and Ninurta became Enlil's champion, his enforcer, his duke. And Nanar came about as this way. Enlil was in love with Ninma, and so was Enki. And she loved them both, it looks like. So she came down, as Janet explained, to Mars on the way to Earth, and she made a monument to Alalu, who was dead, with a statue facing Earth, his eagle helmet pulled back so he could see Earth. And she came to a land at Baalbek, and right away Enlil whisked her away and said, "Oh, baby, I'm so glad to see you. And oh, you brought seeds. Oh, way cool. Come over to my place. I know just where to plant them. Oh, I'm so glad to see you." And hey, you know what? gets her there. He said, we'll bring our son. We'll bring our son over. We'll bring and the nerd over. Nima, wouldn't that be nice? And we'd be a family again. And I'll build you a medical center really close to me, and let's make love. Well, they did, but it didn't work. Somehow or other, it just did not work. And she said, I love you, Bo, but I'm going to go visit your brother Enki at his place in Eridu in Basra. And so Enlil was really bummed out. His big rival was going to get to try to make a baby with Nimma, and he would have a more powerful lineage than Enlil would on Earth. And so he was really upset. He's mooning around for a couple of months, and he's by the river next to Nimma's place. Nimma's off with Enki, but all the female doctors, including Nimma's second in command, a woman named Sud, who was just young. She was a virgin. It was sort of with a bunch of other women, and they were naked and bathing. And this girl, she was really beautiful, and she was young, and she was a virgin. And the commander saw her and said, "Hey, hello there, Sud. Hey, I got some really nice wine that we made from the grapes that Enlil that Nimma brought us. Here, would you like to taste some?" "Oh, well, thank you, sir. Hey, I'd like to make love with you." "Oh, no, sir, I couldn't do that." "Well, you're so big, and I'm a virgin. And I don't want to do that, sir." "Oh, come on and kiss me." "Oh, no, please. My lips are too little for you." And she raped her. When Nimma found out, oh man, she got everybody to hold him down, tie Enlil down, tie him up, bring him before the council, and they banished him to Africa. They said, Abgal, that was the Enki's personal pilot who had helped him hide Alalu's missiles in Africa. Anyway, Abgal, will you take Enlil down to Africa and exile him forever for what he did, this terrible crime of rape? And so, yes, ma'am. So Abgal flies him down. And this time Abgal turns he ditches his boss Enki and says to Commander Enlil, "Commander, you don't have to give up like this. I know where there's missiles and I know the codes to arm them. Take them and take back your powers, Commander. I'm your man. Enki doesn't know it, but I'm on your side, boss." And Enlil says, "Thanks. I'm glad to know it. Keep this to ourselves. I'll think about it." In the meantime, everybody starts working on Sud, who's now very pregnant from the rape. And of course, the baby inside is Nanar. But anyway, so she's distraught, and they keep saying, "Well, look, if he comes back and if he marries you officially, will you take him as let him forgive him and say, okay, I accept this as a marriage, and we won't call it rape anymore?" "No." But as she got more and more pregnant, she said, "Well, if he will promise to be monogamous and not have any sex with anybody but me, I'll do it." So Enlil comes back. He doesn't tell anybody about the missiles, but he knows where they are, and Abigail knows he knows, but Enki doesn't know he knows, and that's going to be important later on. And so there's this big wedding. Enlil Yahweh marries Sud, who now becomes Ninlil. It means the commander's wife, like first lady. And so that's the background of Nanar. So Nanar's their first kid, and Enlil doesn't trust him. He just does not trust Nanar at all. He thinks Nanar is behind Anzu's revolution.
Why does Enlil not trust his own son? I haven't read that story. The story that you read,
because he has invested everything in Ninurta. Ninurta is the one that he trusts.
So Nanar's jealous of Ninurta, the eldest son.
His older brother. Nanar's the older brother, and Nanar isn't just an older brother. Nanar is an incredible hero, a brilliant person. He's just He's like done for. He's head of the Joint Chiefs, but he's the Joint Chiefs. He's got a missile that he can fire from his plane that's got 9 warheads. He's got
the Nerta. You're talking about the Nerta's got the missile.
Yeah, that's the Nerta. So Nanar, Enlil doesn't want to give him any power. He doesn't trust him. Then finally, after all kinds of strife happens, he says, "You know what? I'm going to give Nanar a chance. I'm going to let him be in charge. He seems to be a peaceful dude, and I like his ideas. War is just such a waste of time." Nanar wants to introduce credit so that everybody owes everybody else money, and we can skim off the top, and they'll be enslaved to work for us but they won't know it. And I think that's a really cool idea.
So it seems like Nanar was introducing the concept of religion and also the concept of money.
Right.
And these are slave mechanisms for humanity to keep, as the population was growing exponentially and the Anunnaki population was not growing as rapidly. I guess there's something there that we don't quite know, that they weren't reproducing. It was few and far between when a pure Anunnaki was born. And
that's right.
Like when Ananda was finally born, and that was because of their infertility, correct?
That's right. But
they lost hybrid vigor.
But Canaan was just filled with Anunnaki and the Aryans all along the Mediterranean coast on both sides.
So they were the hybrids, right? They were the hybridization program with humanity mixing with the Anunnaki created hybrid vigor, and so they were able to reproduce at the level that the Anunnaki civilization had done before their nuclear war. So they had revitalized their own genetic strains, and they were reproducing en masse. But the pure blood Anunnaki with Anunnaki children were not being produced very often. There's still some kind of infertility going on with pure Anunnaki. So now the population was in the millions, heading towards, we don't even know what the population was before the flood, but it could have been like we have now. It could have been millions and millions and millions and billions of people, right? But we don't really have any stats on that. But the key, what I'm talking about on page 225, is Nanar was the genius behind introducing religion and money. Now, do you have any indication from your research about where he learned those concepts?
Yes, absolutely. What happened is this is way before the flood, way before, right. When they wanted during that time, each Anunnaki lived in his own temple complex, they called it, and he had a bunch of servants around him. They grew a local garden for him. They cooked his food. They carried him around so he wouldn't get his feet muddy. That polished his saucer. All this, So he had servants, and they made a ritual. And the Anunnaki like cleanliness, and the servants are all naked. And they're instructed in if you've ever watched The Crown and you see how these household servants stand at attention at each of the portals, and the way things are run in the kitchen, and that's exactly how the Anunnaki did. They made a ritual out of everything, and when Victoria was through eating, everybody was through eating, and it's like that. So they were trained in rituals. They cooked the food. They knew how to make good beer. They knew how to process the wine. They had they had specialists, and so what the ordinary rituals, things like bringing food, making perfumes and anointing the Anunnaki, massaging, all these different things, providing sexual entertainment for the Anunnaki, all these different things they became the rituals, including the rituals of being concubines for the Anunnaki. And the Anunnaki women, of course, had their earthling lovers too. they were very sexual. So they like to have sex with everybody, really. But so what you have then is Nanar is training in this very, very early days people that are ritual experts, and these ritual experts later on become the priests. And as the Anunnaki get more and more distant from the people, and in places like Egypt they go about masked all the time. The priests become the interlocutors that are really running things. After Thoth left Mesoamerica, for example, in 311 BCE, and he left these 12 Mayan initiates in charge. But over the years and generations, their great-great-great-grandchildren started sacrificing enemies and then non-enemies and all kinds of things that Nigashita never would have done. And that's the way it goes. All these priesthoods used the knowledge and separate ordinary people from it, so they used it for their own power, because they no longer had authority of right and heart, but they were coming from their power chakras, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, so we have about 5 or 6 minutes left or something. I wanted to talk about Enki started the Brotherhood of the Snake, a secret society for Adapta's smartest descendants. The Brotherhood gave certain Earthlings advanced scientific knowledge, and he told them, we of the Nibiru are long-living people, not gods. So what is this Brotherhood of the Snake? What do you know about the Brotherhood of the Snake and its importance and relevance?
So Enlil, when he saw, Enlil came over when Enki had first brought over the kids, Tiamat and Adamu, to his place in Basra, and he wanted to see him, and Enlil had a place right next door, and so these kids were really smart and just like a little boy or girl in Nibiru. And one day, Tiamat ate this dimethyltryptamine fruit from a tree. This tree with a spirit is what they say, but it was DMT. And then she made love with Adam, and she got pregnant and had a Satori experience and experienced her oneness with him and the universe, and became enlightened and all this, and she was pregnant. She was so happy, and she was a genius. She had made this table, and she was laying out these twigs and figuring out the geometrical formulas of different kinds of triangles. And when she saw the guy next door, and she was told, you're going to meet your uncle Enlil, and this guy comes over, and she said, hi, I'm Tiamat. Look what I made. And see, I made an apron, and she started rapping. And Enlil, Yahweh, sees this little girl. He said, what have you done? The little girl, she's pregnant. She's 16-year-old pregnant. What have you done? I told you could make clones. I didn't say you could make breeders. And he says, Ninerda, come here. Put Enki in chains. Put an electrical charge around him. You are guilty of treason. I'm going to get you executed. And then, and Ninerda, make sure that he doesn't get away. And then Nimrod comes, what the are you doing, you stupid? Let him go. Let him go now. Okay. Take the damn things off him. Look, you know what? You want these things to breed? Go ahead. Take them back down to Africa and tell them to breed. Get them the hell out of here. Okay, boss.
So we're going to be running out of time here in a couple of minutes. I wanted to, then the last part of this is at 186,000 BCE. Nibiru's perigee dislodged asteroids bits at Earth and Mars and created intense warming, earthquakes, hurricanes, and floods on both planets. The perigee ruined Mars base and ended Marduk's command there, and Enki vowed to help Marduk get a turn to rule. So we won't have much time to go into that. I just wanted to switch to, we have a new book because I'm finishing it up tonight. I'm going to upload it tomorrow, and as soon as the system stops rejecting me, which usually takes about 2 or 3 days, I get through the errors. Maybe first time loading it'll be 100%. Who knows? This book, our latest book, which is called Anunnaki, Evolution of God, should be out this week. We're really excited. Or maybe it'll be out by the 1st of October. I don't know. But, Dr. Lessin, you want to tell people this Anunnaki, you've been working on this book for a year now. And what is Anunnaki, Evolution of the Gods, which is book 5 of the Anunnaki series? What is that about?
It's basically about the mixed bag that the Anunnaki are, which is very much like the mixed bag that we Earthlings are. And so they gave us gifts, good things, things that everybody digs, like life. We wouldn't exist without them. They gave us stuff directly. They gave it. Here's how you make a wheel. Here's how you make grain. Here's how you make this and that and the other thing. And look at what we do. Here's how we party. That's how you party. And so there's some things that they directly showed us how to do. We want you guys to make bricks, they said afterwards. First, you got to make this stuff real hot, and then you mix it with this and that and the other thing, and this bitumen that comes out of the earth, you can, etc. They gave us stuff. However,
that's the end of it. When I end of our show, check out EnkiSpeaks.com. Aloha. Thanks for joining us today.
Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent news story, and I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
On the go? Still want to listen? Don't have one of those fancy phones with too many buttons. Don't know what an app is? Or you don't even care? Well, we got you here at Revolution Radio. Now you can dial in 24/7 to listen to our shows. We have a number for Studio A and Studio B, and best of all, it's free. Don't forget, your carrier charges for your cell phone provider may apply, though, so check with your cell provider to make sure. So ready? Here you go. Get a pen. Here's the number. Studio A is 712-432-6958, and Studio B is 716-748-0112. Thank you very much for listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station in the world.
Hey everyone, it's Barbara Jean Lindsay, the Cosmic Oracle. If you have questions about your past lives or future plans, need answers from the cosmos about your love life or career, or just want to keep your finger on the pulse of the planet, check out my show, The Cosmic Oracle, here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com.
Looking for a nightcap to fill your listening needs? Come join us on Spaced Out Radio with me, Dave Scott, right here on Revolution Radio. Monday through Friday for 3 hours a night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, we will take you down the supernatural path. From ET contact to the paranormal and all of the spiritual, cryptid, and conspiracy stories in between. You can find us right here on Revolution Radio at spacedoutradio.com, on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show. Spaced Out Radio. It's a night of talk and interaction. Are you experienced?
From the astral realms to the physical plane, the halls of power to the walls of home, the multiverse to the innerverse. all will be haunted by the ghost in the machine. I am Steve Zerloff, the ghost in the machine. Mondays, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Studio B. Exclusively here on Revolution.Radio.
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
Several years ago, I was developing a very